Okay, so here's my kind of working backwards idea. The basic idea is don't think about theory, don't think about harmony, don't think about anything. Just write notes that you think sound good together. So let's try it. I'm just going to kind of randomly put a couple notes down. E, F sharp, G, E. Okay, now I have a couple notes. Let's hear it. Okay, let's maybe try to make this more interesting. Let's extend this loop to 4 bars. Let's maybe shuffle the rhythm a little bit. The idea here is I'm not going to worry about anything with theory for a minute. I'm just going to kind of throw random notes around here. Let's put that there. Let's put that there. Okay, so I just kind of threw some notes together. Okay, whatever. Let's put a little, some kind of pulse on that. Piano near the bottom. Okay, that's cool. Put that there. Okay. Okay, so I got a little melody here. And I was sort of paying attention. I'm mostly using E major here, or sorry, E minor here. Could also be G major. There might be some stuff out of the key. I'm not really paying attention. I don't care. Okay, I'm gonna make another track. And I'm actually gonna copy this track into a new clip slot grid instead of making another track. Change my mind. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start adding a harmony. I'm still not going to think about theory as much as I can. I mean, I know a bit of theory now, so I'm just going to add some bass notes to this. Okay, so I know G is going to kind of work. So let's just start. Okay, from here on out, I'm not thinking. I started with a G. I'm just going to go like this. Let's do that. Okay, I just added a bass line to it. Now, this may or may not sound good because I wasn't thinking, but that's okay, that's my point. Okay, now I'm gonna kick it around. I'm gonna get rid of some stuff that's not working particularly well to me really quick. Let's leave that where it was. Okay, now my chord progression is now starting to come into focus. I have a melody and I have a bass line that I think are kind of interesting together. Now it's time to use some theory. So let's take that, throw that over here. So now I'm on a new track. It's still just a piano sound, but I want to look at what chords I've made here. right? So now I'm going to start using theory. Before I was just going based on my ear. So now let's see what we've got. So here we have a G and an E. So that could be an E minor chord. That would make the most sense. So let's fill in a B, which is what we would need to finish our B minor chord, or E minor chord. There we go. So now I have an E minor chord there. Now let's stretch that out to be the full length of the bass line. Okay, this I'm just going to call a passing tone. I'm going to kind of ignore it. Here I have an E and a G. That could be still an E minor chord, right? There's the G, there's the E. Call that a voice exchange that's happening right there. But it doesn't matter. Let's not get too fancy. Let's just still call it an E minor chord. Okay, so an E minor chord is going to work over that whole bit. Here my bass note is a B. I have an E, an F sharp, and a D. What do we want to call that? The question here is, which of these two notes is our chord? We could go either way, but I'm going to be kind of weird with it and say F sharp. With that, I could call it a B minor chord. B, D, F sharp. So let's try it. At least for this first half. That kind of works. Now here, let's stick to it. Let's just get weird. Let's ignore that bass note. We'll see if it works. Okay, now I have a G, an A, and a G. So that could be, these two notes are a whole step apart, which means we could explain that with a seventh. We could say it's A, C, E, G with a seventh, or we could just call this note a passing tone and call it still yet another G minor. Now, I'm willing to call it a G minor because that makes sense, or a G major, sorry, because that makes sense, but we just had one, and we want something a little more interesting. So we have a whole bunch of G's here. What's a more interesting chord that has a G in it? Actually, we had E minor over here, so we could call this a G major. So if we built something on B, which we've already done here, we could use a chromatic mediant. We could make this a chromatic mediant by making it a major. That could be fun. Let's try that. Let's try leaving that major. That's using chromatic mediants. And then here, let's try calling this a G major chord. So we have just G, B, D. Okay, and we'll get rid of all of this. Now here we have a bunch of A and an F sharp. What can we call that? F, A, C. So let's call that an F sharp chord. F, A, C. And we have a D, an E, and an A. Let's ignore that E for now, and let's just say a D and A. That makes a D major chord. D, F sharp, A. And this last one, E, G, D, E. Let's call it an E minor chord. So let's get rid of that, and just go E, G, B. Okay, now I want to look at what I've got. So now, if I'm in the key of E minor, I have a 1, and then I have a major 3. So that's using chromatic mediants. But now remember, the reason I landed here, the reason I ended up with a chromatic mediant right here, isn't because I sat down and said, I want a chromatic mediant, that's going to be cool. I did it because I came up with a melody, then I came up with a bass line, and then I came up with a chord progression, and it just kind of had one in it, and that's okay. So I'm just reinforcing what I just kind of discovered through using my ear, right? So here I have, so if we're in the key of, okay, so in order for this to be a chromatic mediant, this has to be a G major, not a E minor. So just a slight correction on that. I had an E minor here, and B is not the chromatic mediant. So if I change this to a G, that's what I meant to do. So now we have a G, and then we have a chromatic mediant on that, a major 3. Now we have another G, and F sharp A, C. That's kind of a weird chord. It's a diminished chord. That's a 7, a diminished 7. I don't love that, but let's see what happens. And then if I'm in the key of G, I have a 5 here, and then E, G, B, and E minor here, which is a 6. Okay, so let's do a little voice leading magic and just do some transpositions to get everything kind of in the same area. Can move these up. Let's leave them down. Okay, let's just hear our chord progression as is right now. Okay, let's see if it fits with our melody. Everything except that note. So I changed it to a D sharp. But that's cool, 'cause check this out. Boom, now it'll fit. Let's do that. Cool. Let's try this one. I gotta move these down to E sharp. Okay, so now I found a really interesting chord progression. It actually happens to use a chromatic mediant. But the way I found it was through just some exploration and then seeing what came out of it, and eventually I landed on this chord progression that happened to have a chromatic mediant. Now, if you were working on a track, the last thing I would want you to do is to sit here and look at your chord progression and say, well, this doesn't make sense in G major because that note doesn't work, so that needs to be a D. But that's going to tame it. You know, that's going to make it so much less interesting. Right, let's just hear that chord progression without the chromatic mediant in it. Hold on, let's get rid of this because it's going to sound really dissonant now. Right, it's okay. But if we jazz it up by doing this, right, it just adds a little something. So what I did here is I kind of worked backwards. I've thought of a melody, I played around with it, and I ended up at this cool chord progression. So that's one technique for using some of these different harmonic ideas. Okay, in the next video, I'll dump out this track that I just made so you can download it and play with it if you like.